header, tagging provider, etc. Smaller companies will definitely go out to a system integrator directly. Again, someone like a Tyco, because Tyco has these relationships and is able to pull them all together. So it really depends on the size of the business, but larger companies typically prefer to go direct to the different suppliers for obvious reasons.
Right. Got it. And I guess as someone who was part of the Inditex, rollout process or Zara rollout process, I guess when you look at the different suppliers, whether it be the endpoints, the gateways, hardware, as well as the solutions, who are the best? I mean, I guess endpoints, there it doesn't sound like there's that much choice. But in terms of maybe gateways, I mean, who what's the difference between NXPI and Impinj? What's the difference between the different types? Do any of the retail hardware guys or any of the software solutions, do they stand out?
I mean, honestly, no. They ultimately today fall into on the hardware side. And just let me caveat this by saying, I'm building a current business in the exact space that views massive opportunities in the shortcomings that I'm about to talk to. So again, my opinion is quite subjective. But from a hardware standpoint, part of the challenge has been that ultimately hardware providers fall into two buckets, or the hardware solutions in the space fall into two buckets. And I'm primarily speaking about at a store level right now, because it's a little different in warehousing, but at a store level, you have infrastructure that includes the handheld RFID readers, which the company that is very present right now, I don't know what their exact market share is Zebra, in terms of deploying those handheld RFID solutions. And then on the other side, you have the companies developing this overhead fixed infrastructure. So it's a sensor that goes up on the ceiling and basically automates the reading of RFID tags that handheld devices had previously done. And on that front, there's been a little bit more innovation, but ultimately, the performance across both buckets, so the performance across overhead solutions has been quite consistent for the past few years, and the performance across handheld solutions has been quite consistent, again, for, as far as I know, since I started working on RFID at Inditex in 2012. So there's been very limited innovation from a hardware standpoint, and that's simply due to the fact that, RFID has been around for RFID for retail has been a concept that people have been talking about for 20 years. A lot of money was invested in these different companies in the early 2000s. It never took off. And as a result, these companies that have been able to stay afloat are using the funds that they have to stay afloat, as opposed to reinvest in R&D, which is why that innovation has stagnated. And then on the software side, one of the bigger challenges that we've seen with this space is that a lot of the providers that are currently building software are historically industrial service providers, and therefore are building products, for manufacturing or logistics, warehousing solutions that are quite antiquated. Just in terms of, we've seen demos where people are running applications on these large PDAs that are like Windows-based, which is obviously not exactly the most contemporary feel. There hasn't been much innovation there, simply because the segment of industry that has been focused on developing these solutions doesn't take kind of a user-centered design approach. They're not building, solutions like the current software companies of today. Just a different profile. Not surprisingly, what we're doing is focused on solving both of those exact problems from a product standpoint.